So in this video, based on my boy Dana's comments, we're going to be talking about the EU and some of the sticking points that still remain and why we couldn't get the CETA deal that we allegedly wanted. And so for a start, I'm going to try and pronounce, she's the EU's commissioner. I'm going to try and pronounce her name properly because I've been corrected so many times now and it's embarrassing for me. So Ursula von der Leyen, yeah? Is that how you pronounce it, Dano? Okay. And so going into this, we'll talk about fishing first of all. So around 20 years ago, fishermen in Fleetwood, Lancashire, managed to make national news by inviting several dozen Spanish trawlers to join their cooperative. The unprecedented marriage of convenience provoked fury from other British fishermen. According to reports at the time, the spokesman for one of the Fleetwood's southwestern counterparts told the BBC they were very angry that Fleetwood could abandon its principles it had for so many years. So the Spanish vessel owners in question were and still are known as quota hoppers, fishermen from other countries who had bought British fishing boats and licenses to gain access to the British fishing quotas. So what happens is these fishermen, instead of using their quotas and actually fishing the fish and the other stuff and selling that and making money off it, what they do is they take a shortcut and basically they sell their quota for money, and therefore without doing anything they have made money. Okay, and this is why when we talk about taking back our coast and all this stuff, it's a fallacy because we sold the right to these things. We have sold the rights to these things, and therefore if we take them back through force, through the Navy, that is theft. And if we look further into this, that's the CETA stuff there. Foreign companies own the rights to catch more than 130,000 tonnes of fish every year that are part of England's fishing quota. BBC research has revealed more than £160 million worth of English quotas is in the hands of vessels owned by companies based in Iceland, Spain and the Netherlands, thanks to a practice known as quota hopping. That amounts to 55% of the quota's annual value in 2019. Taking back control of the UK fishing waters was a key issue for many Brexit supporters, but with fishing still an obstacle in the UK trade talks with the European Union, the figures raise questions about taking control will actually mean. And this goes on to talk about quotas and how important they are. But at the same time, what we can see from this is we have sold our rights willingly. We were not forced to sell our fishing rights. We sold them willingly. The fishermen sold their rights. So we have no right to try and claim that this is ours and we have a divine right to these fishing waters when we have sold the rights to fish in those to get those fish or fish in those waters, and so that's one of the sticking points. And also the point is that if we did take these back by force and we somehow agree to deal with the EU, then a lot of EU countries are going to get a lot of stick from their people, specifically the French, but also, as mentioned here, the Spanish, the Dutch, and the Icelandics, the Icelanders, or whatever they call themselves, the people of Iceland. Their governments will get a ton of stick if they agree a deal without EU fishing quotas protected, based on the fact that they have brought the rights to fish these fish. Okay, that sounds redundant and it's annoying saying it, but it's true. So the idea that we can take back our fishing waters is a fallacy because we sold them off willingly. So if we go to talk about a CETA deal, and we can talk about some of the issues around the CETA deal regardless. So what does a CETA deal do? So we've heard a lot about wanting zero tariff, zero quota deal between the EU and the UK. CETA does not do that. CETA gets rid of most of those, but not all. Tariffs, taxes are imports. So when you import something, you pay a fee or a tax, and that goes to the government, or in this case, HMRC. On goods traded between the EU and Canada, tariffs remain on poultry, eggs, and meat. It also increases quotas. That's the amount of product that can be exported without extra charges, but does not get rid of them altogether. For example, quotas on EU cheese exports to Canada increased from 18,500 tonnes to 31,972 tonnes a year. It does little for trade in services, and in particular almost nothing for the trade in financial services, which is very important for the UK economy. So not only is a CETA deal not suitable for us because we trade mainly in services, we're a service-based economy, but also it will not give us absolute free access to the EU. There will still be border checks, and there will still be tariffs and quotas on potentially some items. And one of the reasons why it took so long to actually get this deal is because they were haggling over specific areas. So say for now, Canadian dairy farmers fret over EU trade deal. So Ontario, on both sides of the Atlantic, many of the people who are most upset about the new free trade deal between Canada and European Union are dairy farmers, but they have opposite worries. The deal was nearly derailed by enraged farmers in Wallonia region of Belgium because of how much they had been struggling. In Canada, by contrast, farmers are anxious because they have been doing so well. The way the country's supply manager works now, Canadian dairy farms are almost guaranteed to prosper. Milk production is controlled by quotas, marketing, and so what the point of this article is to say is that both sides were scared because the Belgian cheese manufacturers were struggling, and therefore by increasing and allowing more Canadian cheese into the market, you have a market in which a company, a sector is already struggling. They will struggle more because now there's more competition. And on the other hand, you have Canadian farmers who, cheese manufacturers, who are scared because they're doing really well, and by introducing more competition, it cuts into their bottom line. And that's one of the reasons why the EU-Canada deal took so long, because you have so many stakeholders when you negotiate with the EU. You have 27 stakeholders in the EU, and each country has to have a say on the trade deal. So in this case, if Belgium didn't agree to the deal and said, look, that's importing too much cheese from Canada, we don't like it, we're going to veto. And that's one of the reasons why a CETA deal took so long, and another reason why the CETA deal wouldn't have worked, purely because we did not have enough time to come up with these individual agreements and quotas and tariff fees with the EU. That's what happened here. When as Dano pointed out, when you have a trade deal, it's convergence. You have two countries or two organizations, two groups that come together to align more, whether that comes to regulations or comes to quotas and things like that. They're going to make an agreement to make things easier. But what we're doing is making things harder. And therefore, if we say 90% of goods that come into the UK are tariff free, what is the quota? How much of that can be tariff free? And also, what's the 10%? Is that British beef, strawberries? I don't know. Name it, whatever we make, right? Actual manufactured goods, not services. Actual manufactured goods, and these are some of the sticking points that still remain with the EU, because if we want a Canada-style deal, how much are the quotas going to be? How much are the tariffs going to be? And what doesn't get a pass when it comes to the tariff-free access? Which products don't get the tariff-free access? And these are basically a few of the key sticking points. There's also the level playing field. Do I have that? Yeah, here we go. And so what does a level playing field mean? Is a trade policy term for a set of common rules and standards that prevent businesses in one country gaining a competitive edge over those operating in another country. It's about fair and open competition, and it's an important part of the EU single market in which member countries will allow free movement of people, services, goods and capital and all that stuff. And so one of the points that I want to make is that when the US, when Trump agreed the USMCA, he wanted car manufacturers in Mexico to get paid, I think it's around $15 an hour or something like that. And that's not because Trump cares about the Mexican car manufacturers. It's because he doesn't want more car manufacturing going to Mexico because of the lower wages. So what he did was he forced Mexico to essentially increase the wages for Mexican car manufacturers to make it less likely that American car manufacturers will move to Mexico because of the higher wage. And so while you want a level playing field, it's to circumvent things like that. So if you have, say for example, if we did come up with a CETA deal with Britain and we did tariff-free access on cars, okay? And so we start slashing workers' regulations, specifically regulations when it comes to, workers, in the car manufacturing industry. Then what the EU are going to be like, yo, bro, you can't do that, that's not fair. And the UK will be like, well, we didn't have a level playing field agreement, we can do what we want. And then the UK will therefore export cheaply manufactured cars, because of a lack of regulations. As long as they meet the EU regulations, it's fine, but a lack of worker regulations, right? And that's what's going to cause the problems. And you can do that across multiple industries, you name it, any manufacturing industry, whether it's beef, farming, agriculture in general, fishing, whatever, you name it, you can have it. And I have too many examples that come to mind. But what we can see here is fishing, level playing field, state aid would fall into level playing field. Because say, for example, if we have a steel agreement with the EU where we can export steel tariff-free and quota-free, then if we start propping up steel industry massively, then that's going to give our steel manufacturers a massive edge over EU ones. But also there is still a problem with EU and state aid, where there are, like I said, EDF is majority owned by the French government, and therefore there are still issues when it comes to things like state aid within the EU. But that's a separate video, and I'm sure my boy Dano will point stuff out if he does watch this video. Hopefully he does, because I've leveled it up a bit, my content a bit, thanks to him. In part, and so we've got a bit more on quota hoppers. It's the EU practice of obtaining the rights to catch a part of a country's national quota for fish in European waters by buying the licenses from its fishermen. So essentially, you could try and even argue here that British fishermen are being lazy by selling their quotas, and therefore not actually using their quotas to actually get the fish and sell it here, creating jobs here in the UK. Instead, what they do is they buy the rights here, they take the fish home, they either sell it in the domestic market or they sell it back to us, which is at an increased cost because of the extra cost of transporting it. And so what we can see from this is the fact that there are winners and losers even in a CETA deal. Any trade deal, there'll be winners and losers. The problem is the CETA deal isn't as comprehensive as the Brexiteers made out. That's why they talk about CETA plus and plus 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 and plus plus minus plus multiplication division. And so yeah, that's going to wrap up this video. So we talked about some of the sticking points. So just go over it. There's the level playing field one. There's the CETA one, which is not going to work because we haven't had enough time to actually talk about what's going to be tariff and quota free. And we have the fishing stuff, which is about EU quota hoppers who basically bought the rights to fish in the UK, and we're being mad about that because we sold them off willingly and now we want it back. Get that, figure that one out, guys. But anyways, I'm gonna leave it there. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Shouts out Dano, my boy, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.